With the 25-26 NHL season starting on Tuesday, let's predict if the games will be higher scoring or lower scoring than average. For this analysis, I examined the 22,402 games that were played in the salary cap era when you exclude the shortened 2013 and 2021 seasons. This first graph compares the scoring of the first 200 games of each season with games 201 onward. In 14 out of 18 seasons, scoring was higher in the first 200 games, and usually by a noticeable amount. The 4 seasons when later games had a higher average score, the difference was typically smaller, except for the outlier 21-22 season, which I'll talk about later. Looking at this by percentages, we see a similar trend where in 2/3 of seasons, the first 10% of games were higher scoring than the latter 90%. And once again, when those later games were higher scoring, the difference was usually smaller. Let's lastly adjust the boundaries and look at the first 25% of games versus the latter 75% of games. It's more of the same story, where 13 out of 18 seasons, the first 25% of games were higher scoring. But since we increased the sample size of games to 25%, the difference understandably shrinks. So why is scoring usually higher at the beginning of the season? It's tough to say for sure, but I think the most likely answer is that the players are rustier after returning from the summer. But I also listed some other reasons that could be at play too. And for those who bet on the over-under, the trends point towards the over being the smarter strategy in October. Now, as mentioned, and as you probably saw, there was one season that stood out above the rest. The 21-22 season is unique in the fact that it's the first time that quote-unquote normal hockey had been played in over 1.5 years. Whether this had a direct impact on scoring or if it's just a coincidence, there were much stricter guidelines in 2021 due to COVID, and lots of call-ups that had to be used that weren't as skilled. I think this is partly why the season was such an outlier, and why the trend you see above me is unlikely to repeat. Scoring literally increased every single month, and as you'll soon find out, this is not the norm. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll go over month-by-month scoring and even day-by-day scoring.